Hello! Welcome to lesson 4 of the classification of animals. And today we're going to talk about fish, fins, and gills. Okay, so let's see. Here is what is called a mnemonic device. Mnemonic devices are ways that help us remember something. So we're going to take the first letter of all of our different groups of vertebrates, and we're going to make a little saying to remember. So if you remember, all my best friends represent vertebrates, you can remember your different groups. So all my best friends represent vertebrates. A is for amphibians, M is for mammals, B is for birds, F is for fish, R is for reptiles, and V is for vertebrates, right? All my best friends represent vertebrates. All right. So that's a way to remember your different groups. What are two of the physical traits we've learned about so far that scientists use to classify animals? Right, do you remember? We talked first about how animals are cold-blooded or warm-blooded. And then yesterday we talked about how animals are vertebrates or invertebrates. What does it mean to be cold-blooded or warm-blooded? If you remember, cold-blooded animals do not regulate their own temperature. Their inside body temperature is the same as wherever they are, the outside is. If they're in water, they're the same temperature as the water. If they're outside of water, they're the same temperature as the air around them. And then warm-blooded animals can regulate their temperature. So their bodies go ahead and keep a constant temperature. So their temperature on the inside stays the same. Their internal temperature stays the same. Even though a lot of the animals we see and think about and talk about are vertebrates, they are only a tiny percent of the animal population on Earth and are far outnumbered by many types of invertebrates. We learned about those yesterday. So today we're going to work on inferring from clues. So today you will hear more about one of the groups of animals, and I'm going to give you clues so you can predict which group it will be. I am a cold-blooded member of the animal kingdom. I am a vertebrate. I am found swimming in fresh water or salt water. I move around by using my fins, and I breathe oxygen through my gills underwater. If I don't swim away fast enough from humans and they pick me up, they will feel the hard scales that cover my body, and they may even eat me. What am I? I am a fish. We are going to learn all about fish today. All right, so think about one thing that you would like to learn about fish. Or do you have a question about fish? Why do fish do this? Or why do fish do that? So think about a question, and we're going to see if your question's answered today. If it's not answered, you can tell me about it during our afternoon meet. So as we learn about fish, let's see if we answer your questions. Some vocabulary that you will see today. The word aquatic, that's a very important word. Aquatic has to do with water. Think aquarium. Anything with that aqua at the beginning has to do with water. That's a prefix that has to do with water, like aquarium, aquamarine, aquaman, right? They have to do with water. Another word is fertilizes, makes ready for development. Gills, the organs that fish use to breathe the oxygen and water. Lungs, the breathing organs of vertebrates that breathe oxygen. Respiratory, having to do with the act of breathing. scales, the many small hard plates that cover the skin of most types of fish, and the word spawn, which is a verb, to deposit eggs in the water, which then become fertilized or ready for development. So let's start our lesson for today. Hello everyone, I'm back after a delightful rest. Today I'm going to tell you more about my friend Polo Piranha and the group to which he belongs. So far you've learned that scientists classify living things by common characteristics in order to study them and show relationships. You've learned about cold-blooded and warm-blooded animals. Who remembers if Polo Piranha is cold-blooded or warm-blooded and can explain what that means? Ah, bravo, right. Polo Piranha's internal body temperature varies with his surroundings. When Polo is swimming in warm water, his body temperature is higher than when he is swimming in cold water. His body temperature is not constant. It makes adjustments to the surrounding temperatures easily. Who remembers another way scientists classify animals? I'll give you a hint. It has to do with bones. Right, some animals have backbones. What's another word for animals with backbones? Yes, animals with backbones are called vertebrates. And those without backbones are called invertebrates. Polo is one of many kinds of animals capable of swimming. Having a strong backbone is one type of body design that helps Polo and other fish to be good swimmers. So remember that body design as we fill out our chart later. You have also learned a little bit about taxonomy, the science of classification. Fish are members of Animalia, or the animal kingdom, just like you and me, but they belong to a different animal group. What word do you hear in Animalia? Animalia is Latin for animal. You are a mammal like Hilda Hippo, and myself, Ebenezer, is a bird, and Polo is a fish. Fish are vertebrates and they are cold-blooded. There are many different types and sizes of fish, represented by many species. Today I'm going to teach you a little more about aquatic species of animals that are classified as fish. So to say that in 3 words, fish are aquatic. They don't live on land, they live in water. All species of fish are aquatic. Fish make up the largest group of vertebrates on Earth. Let's take a look at my slide that shows a view of planet Earth from space. There's a lot more water than land. Nearly 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered by water. All right. Fish make up the largest group of vertebrates on Earth. So let's look at this map of the Earth that you see here. Nearly 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Fish are swimming about in the Earth's waters, from ponds and streams to rivers, lakes, and oceans. They have adapted to almost every water habitat on Earth except for some very hot springs and the extremely salty Dead Sea. Aside from these places, fish can live anywhere. It's no wonder that fish make up the largest group of vertebrates on Earth. Most of those wet, watery fish habitats are salty because most of the Earth's water is salt water. If you ever swim in the ocean, you may get a little taste of the salty sea. Sharks, cod, and flounder are all saltwater fish. So look at the picture of the globe. All that blue is the water, right? So the majority of the globe of the world is actually water. Oh, there's the Dead Sea. So the Dead Sea is an area that is in Egypt and Jerusalem in the Middle East, and it's called the Dead Sea because nothing lives in it because it's so salty. In fact, if you went and jumped in it, you would actually float on the top really well because of all the salt holding you up. Freshwater fish live in lakes, rivers, streams, and ponds. What do you think freshwater is? That's right, freshwater is just water that's not salty, that doesn't have salt in it. Bass and trout are common freshwater fish, and some humans actually find them very tasty. Come to think of it, I find fish quite delicious when I am getting my paws on fish scraps. Some fish, such as salmon, spend part of their lives in freshwater rivers and part in the salty seawater. Salmon begin their lives in rivers where they stay for anywhere from 6 months to 3 years depending on the species. Then they make an often dangerous journey out to sea, facing predators and changing water temperatures along the way. They live in the saltwater ocean for about 4 years before returning to the freshwater river to lay their eggs. Their migration often covers several hundred miles. Wow, that's a long migration. Let's stop for a moment to think about the different ways that taxonomists classify polo, a South American piranha, from the Amazon River. He's a cold-blooded aquatic vertebrate. He is a fish to be sure. The question is whether he is a saltwater fish or a freshwater fish. Which of these types of water is his home? That's right, a freshwater river. Polo's home is the Amazon River, one of the largest rivers in the world. Piranhas live in freshwater environments, mostly rivers, so they are classified as freshwater fish. Sometimes animals are classified by their physical characteristics. Though piranhas do have very sharp teeth, they are not the bloodthirsty carnivores they are sometimes perceived to be, always ready to attack humans. Indeed, members of the red-bellied species of piranha do hunt the meat of other fish in large groups, but that's not all they eat. Most piranhas are omnivores. You have reviewed carnivores and omnivores earlier in this domain. Who can tell me what the difference is? That's right. As omnivores, most piranhas eat both animals and plants, eating seeds and fruit that fall into the water. Many piranhas also feed on carrion, animals that have already died. You will continue to hear about the different foods that many different animals eat. This will help you describe animals. Later, you will hear about how the shape and size of animals' teeth give you clues about what they eat. So you already know several common characteristics of fish, but there are more. Can you think of any others? I'll give you a hint. You know that all animals need to breathe oxygen in order to live. Fish do not have lungs. So we have to wonder how in the world, or in this case, underwater, do they breathe? Look closely at this fish and see if you can spot its breathing machine. The respiratory or breathing organs of a fish are called gills. All fish have gills. They take water in through their mouths and the water passes over their gills. The gills take in oxygen from the water, allowing them to breathe. You will die quickly if you don't get enough air, because you draw oxygen out of the air. But fish will die quickly if they do not have water, because their oxygen comes from water. The African lungfish is the only fish I know that has lungs in addition to gills and can survive out of the water. We call this an exception to the rule, or a pattern breaker. Remember this one, we'll write it on our chart. Before the dry season, when the water dries up and leaves a sun-baked river bed behind, the lungfish buries itself deep in the mud and builds a cocoon-like sheath around itself, staying there for a year or more until water returns to the river. Okay then, fish breathe with gills and you breathe with lungs. That's one big difference between you and fish. What's another? Think about how you swim, with your arms and legs, of course. Take a close look at the fish. Do you see any arms or legs? Nope. So what helps a fish move through the water? Yes, a fish has fins, all kinds of fins. It has fins on the sides of its body for steering, fins at the back for powerful speed, and fins at the top and bottom for to help keep balance. Fish couldn't begin to move without those wonderful flat fins and their flexible tails. Have you ever worn flippers? Flippers are designed to be like fish tails to help people move more quickly through the water. Well, everybody, you've spotted the gills and fins of a fish, but what about the rest of a fish's body? What about the skin? Hey, look at me. There I am taking a close look at fish skin through my magnifying glass. Fish skin is very different from your skin. Fish have scaly skin to help protect them and help them move more easily through the water. These hard overlapping scales are rounded and smooth, and fish have they have more than one layer of skin, just like you. The scales on a fish are small, hard protective covering over the true skin that is underneath. It's hard to imagine how many fish live in all the Earth's water today. More than 30,000 species are known, but a vast amount of the world's oceans have yet to be explored. What scientists actually know for certain is like one drop of water in a vast bucket. Scientists discover more and more all the time. Maybe one day you will be one of those scientists who will discover something new. Most fish, such as salmon, goldfish, tuna, and eels, spawn or reproduce in a very unique way. When fish spawn, the mother releases her eggs into the water, and the male fertilizes them or makes them complete and able to grow into baby fish. Once these soft eggs are fertilized, they are often buried along the river bottom. Here they develop and eventually hatch into tiny fish called larvae. The early form of fish. Some sharks, on the other hand, are among the few examples of live-bearing fish. Almost the opposite of external spawning, the mother shark's eggs develop internally, remaining inside her body until they are born as live young rather than as eggs. Hold on. Taxonomists have another way of grouping fish. They divide all fish into 3 classes or classifications. Most fish belong to the class called bony fish. These fish have skeletons that are made of hard, bony material. Most of them have a swim bladder, kind of like an internal floaty, which helps them float. Perhaps you know of some fish that are considered bony fish. Bass, clownfish, minnows, and sunfish are just a few. Another smaller class has some well-known members. As you have heard earlier, fish like the shark and the stingray have skeletons made of cartilage. This class of fish has tooth-like scales, and some of them breathe spiracles, small gill openings on the top of their heads. The last class of fish is not as familiar to most of us. These fish are jawless and include some interesting members like the hagfish and the lamprey. So you can see those in the pictures. Earth's underwater world, Polo's world, is a fascinating place, much of which has not yet been explored. Perhaps some of you will become scientists and study aquatic creatures like Polo. Today, we've only talked about fish, but not all sea animals are fish. There are many other vertebrates in the ocean, such as dolphins, sea snakes, and sea turtles. The sea is also home to tens of thousands of species of invertebrates. Animals you may have seen before, such as crabs, clams, sand dollars, and squid. Let's review the characteristics of fish. How many fish characteristics can you name? Great job. Now I'm going to read you some riddles of sea creatures. See if you can identify which ones are fish and which ones are not. Okay, so our characteristics of fish are they are vertebrates. They breathe using gills, right? They breathe oxygen in the water using gills. They have fins, right? Their fins help them swim. They lay eggs by spawning to make babies. All right, so use what you know to see if they're cold-blooded. Yep, we said the rest. All right, so tell me if this creature is a fish. I'm a jellyfish. My soft body has no bones, and I have neither gills nor lungs for breathing. Oxygen moves easily through my thin skin. Sometimes I lay eggs, but I may also give live birth. I'm cold-blooded and will surely die if left out of water. Is it a fish? No, I am not a fish, even though the word is in my name. I am classified as an invertebrate. All right, I am a cold-blooded eel. My slimy snake-like body is covered in scales and hides my backbone from view. I have gills and fins, and I lay my eggs in the water where I live. Are eels fish? Yes, I am a fish. I am a seahorse. My long body is encased in bony rings. I breathe with gills, and my fins help me glide through the water. I am the male, and I carry eggs in my pouch until they are ready to be hatched. Yes, it is a fish. I am a whale, one of the largest animals of the sea. I breathe with lungs and give birth to live babies. Even though I am not covered in hair, I do have a few bristles of hair here and there on my head. No, I am not a fish, but I am a vertebrate. I am a mammal, right? Whales are mammals. Sorting aquatic creatures is not as easy as it looks, is it? Next time, things will be even more interesting as we learn about some aquatic animals that can live on land as well. How do you think they can do that? You will find out more the next time we meet. So what does the word aquatic mean? It means having to do with water. In what sort of aquatic habitats do fish live? What kind of water do they live in? They can be in lakes, rivers, streams, ponds, freshwater, or saltwater. What is a fish doing when it spawns? It's laying eggs, some of which become fertilized during the reproduction process. Describe the function of the respiratory organs of a fish. A fish has gills, right, to breathe oxygen. Why are scales an important physical characteristic of fish? They offer protection and help them move through the water. How do fish move through the water? What is it they use to move through the water? They use their fins and tails. You and a friend are discussing whether or not a shark is a fish. How would you convince your friend that a shark is a fish? What would you tell your friend? Like other fish, sharks live in water and have gills through which they take in oxygen. They have scaly skin. Their tails and fins help them move through the water. If you were telling someone about fish, would you say there's a large number of fish in the world or a small number of fish? Explain your answer. If fish live everywhere there is water, there are many, many fish in the world because most of the earth is covered by water. There are fish in both saltwater and freshwater. All right, our word for today is aquatic. Today you heard Rattenborough say, "Today I'm going to teach you a little more about the aquatic species of animals that are classified as fish." Aquatic means having to do with water. All right, so we're going to play a game. I'm going to say something and you're going to say that is aquatic or that is not aquatic. Actually, I'm going to wait and we can do that together during our afternoon wrap up. Okay, good job, guys.